We're talking infrastructure now, which has a huge deficit, estimated to cost over 10 trillion naira in the next 30 years if not addressed. This concern formed the basis of a dialogue between debt capital market operators and regulators who brainstormed on how to fund the infrastructure gaps. But one of the concerns raised by economists is the impact of the macroeconomic variables on the debt market. Channel's business correspondent Tepu Ashaju caught up with the Central Bank Director of Financial Markets, Emmanuel Okeji, who speaks to this.
Currently, the interest rate is tolerable. Inflation is still within a tolerable limit, because you realize that even though before now the acceptable inflation rate, which was agreed by the West African Monetary Zone, is 10%. We say single digit, that is not exceeding 10%. And the 9% we had, which people are referring to, was actually fixed by Central Bank on its own. So currently speaking, the inflation rate has not exceeded that which was set by the West African Monetary Zone, and even within the ECOWAS, the sub-region, which says single-digit inflation. So for us, we just did that to actually make it a little bit tighter for us. But given the recent development, which has made inflation to inch up to about 9.4 currently, which is still reasonable, and that is not expected to hurt the economy. So in terms of inflation, I think it doesn't affect issue of debt. Then when you talk about the other development in terms of growth and what have you, then you begin to really appreciate what is the whole essence of debt instrument. Debt is issued in order to provide long-term funding for both government and for corporates. So it has nothing to do with inflation. And for the interest rate, you notice, even if you look at what has happened in the market recently, you will find out that rate yields in terms of bonds that were issued by the government. If you look at the last treasury bill, you find that 91-day bill came down to as low as 8 points, so which is below single digit. So what is going to happen is you begin to see a gradual reduction in interest rates over time, given the fact that those are supposed to be a guide, a benchmark guide. Once the sovereign bond begins to come down lower, then at least we expect that the commercial rates, in terms of what the banks actually take, will be able to be reducing gradually too. So in terms of interest rates, we expect that interest rates will come down. And those who are issuing bonds will continue to issue bonds for the purposes of investment, and of course is the cheapest source of funding for both corporates and government. So that and if you look at it also in terms of bond issuance, it doesn't really have much impact on the economy, unlike when it is funding from the central bank. So it is a question of taking from the surplus sector and giving to those who need it, and government uses that just as well as the corporate for developmental purposes, which we expect that it will help the growth of the economy.
So you think that the interest rate regime right now is a cog in the wheel of the progress to getting a sufficient debt capital market for Nigeria?
No, it's not that. It's not that it's a cog or it's not a cog, but the issue is that if you look at it, it is desirable that interest rates should be lower. And basically, if you also listen to the pronouncement of the new central bank governor, the governor Emefiele, when he came in, it was part of his vision that central bank, he will want to see interest rates lowered. And if you look at it gradually, like I told you now, you begin to see, given what is happening in the system currently, that you are beginning to see yields and rates on all these government bonds coming down. If you look at the rates, and that is a prelude to rates coming down, because currently there is a lot of liquidity in the system, so we cannot talk about shortage of liquidity, and so nobody can say it's because of tightness that rates are high for now. And we expect that going forward, that trend should be able to continue, in which case you begin to see rates coming down.